Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Chimera Elite, and today we're taking a look at some more Wolfen spellcasters. The Tier 1 Devotee of Yella comes in at 55 AP, and unlike most spellcasters, he has 5 movement, meaning that he can actually do a good job of keeping up with the front line of your army, allowing him to just actually do his job well. And his job is to constantly be supporting your troops. He can't heal directly, but he can do it kind of off the side. What's most important for you to keep in mind, though, is that he's orthodox, meaning that he gains mana back differently from the Wolfen Lone Wolf or other spellcasters. He's more of a cleric type. Now what I mean by this is he gains 1 mana point for every unit, rather friendly unit, in his faith zone. And for this guy in particular, his faith zone is 4 hexes around him, which is decently substantial, but especially with the Wolfen army, you can get kind of spread out. With mine especially, I've been in situations where I have misplaced this guy, and when I needed a heal or I needed a buff, he didn't have the faith points to actually use it. So placement of him is especially important. His stats are pretty good, and he can actually buff himself to do decent damage, because unlike the Tier 1 Wolfen Lone Wolf, he is a born killer from the start. So like most Wolfen, he gets 2 attacks a turn. And this is where we get into the really meat and potatoes of this guy. His spells or abilities. His first ability is called Yella's Wrath. Now, Yella's Wrath kind of sounds what it does. It tells you what it does. It grants wrath to whatever unit you give it to. I could toss this on Ryscar, and he's dealing more damage than ever. But there's a catch. That catch is, it gives you Scourge. That's the damage part. So you deal 3 more damage to anything you hit. But there's also the vulnerable part, which means you take 3 more damage from whatever hits you. So it really matters not only who you put it on, but when you put it on them. Put it on them at the end of the turn when you just need this final push to just tear through their army. And with Ryscar, that opportunity can just instantly win you the game. It's just a thought, really. His second ability is called Yella's Love. Seeing a little trend here. Devotee of Yella. Lots of Yella things. You know? Yella's Love is a bit of an oddball, and it gives you +2 parry, so it makes you a bit more able to defend yourself. But at the same time, it gives you regeneration 1, meaning at the end of the full round, you will actually get 5 health back. Ignore the siren, that's not me. I have not done anything wrong. You have nothing on me. But ignoring that, you've got the slight risk of you just wasting your faith points, because Yella's Love, like everything, comes with a catch. If that unit takes another injury in the time that Yella's Love is on them, Yella's Love is cancelled. So you run the risk of putting it on someone and then it being immediately taken away, and you just wasted your turn doing essentially just pissing away your mana. Now you really don't want to be in that situation at any time when you're wasting a turn not doing anything. His final ability is somewhat situational in that right now, because there are only 3 armies, you have a 1 in 3 chance of running into an undead army. And the Mask of Gandahar increases the fear effect of whichever unit you put it on by 4. Now, against some armies, like other Wolfen armies or other Lion armies, this could be very useful on the right unit. But against undead armies where they're immune to fear, it's a total waste. So it's really depending on what you're going up against, but really what isn't. And if you see you're going up against an undead army, then simply take this guy out and switch him out for someone else. Just simple as that. The Tier 2 Guardian of the Equilibrium, or just Guardian of the Equilibrium, comes in at 65 AP and 5 movement, meaning he's decently mobile, he's decently cheap. However, his stats are far better than his Tier 1 counterpart. He's very tough, he has goodwill, good damage, good parry, decent dodge. Now, he's more of the battle cleric, battle mage type than the Tier 1, by far. He deals more damage, and simply by looking at his abilities and attributes, you can just tell. The main attribute that I want to bring your attention to is Born Killer and Scourge Magicians. Born Killer gives him 2 attacks like the majority of the Wolfen. Scourge Magicians means he inflicts +3 damage on all magical units, including warrior mages. Now, aka, he's anti-fucking Chimera. Not this Chimera, that Chimera. The bad Chimera. He's extremely dangerous, and when they come in packs, and they usually do, they're devastating because of how hard they can focus one unit down, even from a range. But just like the Tier 1 and the Tier 3 that we're going to get to, he's orthodox, meaning he needs other friendly units to be around to give him faith points. And this is where he really starts to shine. Against enemy spellcasters, he is a terror, especially once he gets the faith points needed to cast his iconic ability, Middle Way. Now, in the meta right now, not many people run spellcasters, except Wolfen, and they doesn't really apply to them. The Middle Way ability casts an aura of 8 hexes around the Guardian of Equilibrium, where enemy spellcasters cannot cast their spells. If they're of the dark or of the light, they cannot cast any spells at all until they're out of that zone. If you're another Wolfen player, this doesn't apply to you, and you can just keep on going about your business. This costs 3 faith points. It's kind of expensive, but honestly, if you're going up against a Chimera or another very powerful spellcaster, you're going to want to prioritize this over his second ability, which is still extremely dangerous, Hymn to Destiny. This costs 2, has a range of 6, so it's pretty darn far. He has a long arm of damage. And, well, having a damage roll of 7 might not seem like that much. It deals more than 7 damage, I can assure you. It hurts quite a bit. He's essentially reaching across the battlefield and slapping you with his stick. Now, it says he deals 7 damage. True. Against a weaker unit, like a literal war lion from the lion, lions everywhere, it hurts. Against a gargoyle, it hurts. Against really anything, it hurts. Even through toughness, it hurts. That's why these guys are so dangerous. Imagine this, and you can see it in the background. I get my ass handed to me by a very well put together army of 3 Guardians of Equilibrium, a Wolfen Reaper, and Emerok. That's 5 units. I believe it was a 5v5. Now, imagine this. offensive stance, him to destiny. That means he can quite easily, depending on obviously on who you are, a guy can get off 8 attacks on you in one turn. If he bursts both of his offensive stances and just has 2 Guardians of Equilibrium focused down 1 unit. He can hit you with a hymn, blow out your eardrums, and then beat you to death with sticks. These guys are not to be trifled with. And along with their just middle way, Scourge Magicians. 3 more damage to Magicians. If you want to get close to them and you're a Magician, you're doing something wrong, buddy. And just a little aside, they also have Piety 1, meaning that they can actually retain 1 faith point every turn. So if you are, let's say it's the beginning of the game, and your entire army's bunched up, you can just toss this down. Boom, you have 4 faith points, or however many faith points. Move up, use middle way, move up another unit, and just, you can kind of game this to where you always just have the right amount of faith points to cast whatever you want. But that's what's so dangerous and so interesting about these Guardians of Equilibrium in just the Orthodox units in general. You have to manage where they are so closely, or you're going to get yourself in a position where you need a spell and you cannot cast it. The Tier 3 Runic Warrior of the Wolf is 79 AP, has the same movement and faith zone as the Tier 2. He's more accurate and he deals more damage, but he's not as tough. Now, this is where they really start to change things for the worse, in my opinion at least. He's far more expensive than the Guardian of Equilibrium, and he's not as useful. He's orthodox just like the rest. He's Born Killer. He's slightly more fearful. But really all that is different is he has combat instinct, so he never suffers encirclement penalties. And he's savage, meaning no orders can get through this guy's thick skull. Now, that's pretty bad. And for 79 AP, for 8 damage, and War Fury, I mean, it's not all that great. If you're going in with War Fury, I think Astral Worm also made a good point of this. War Fury and having Savage on the same unit is kind of redundant, because War Fury already gives Savage. I mean, I can see why they would toss Savage on the unit just because if you look at the War Gargoyle, I pronounced it right this time, he deals 17 damage a hit. If I could order a War Gargoyle and give him Drink Their Blood, slap someone, he heals for like 20 health, he's back up to near full. And if I can keep on doing that, I can have Melmoth and the Gargoyle just running across the battlefield, tearing everything to shreds. That's one way to look at it. But for this guy, he's just not really worth it, in my opinion. I might mess around with him a little bit more in the future, but all he's got is War Fury and Mortal Insolence. Admittedly, War Fury is a free offensive stance on a unit that isn't actually all that bad. And Mortal Insolence is actually a very useful ability. Until the end of the turn, any injury suffered by the Faithful is ignored and enables it to recover 10 health points. The Faithful's parry and dodge fall to 0 for the duration of the turn. Sounds fantastic, and it is fantastic. But putting it simply, a Runic Warrior of the Wolf, a tier 3 versus a tier 2, in my opinion, I just find the tier 2 to be better and just more flexible. Typically, you can afford to use an offensive stance, and you don't always need another War Fury or DPS unit. Also, the tier 2 has Hymn of Destiny, or Hymn to Destiny. Hymn to Destiny is essentially a free War Fury that you don't need to put yourself in bodily danger to hit someone else with. And along with the increased cost, that's giving up space that you don't necessarily want to give up. So maybe I'm just being a little bit closed-minded, but I don't think I've ever seen a Runic Warrior of the Wolf on the battlefield. Ever. If you look above, you see me getting my ass handed to me, not by Runic Warriors of the Wolf, but by Guardians of Equilibrium and Emerok. I think that this is kind of a problem that a lot of the armies and just a lot of the units in this game have right now, in that there are some units that are maybe underpriced, like the Guardian of Equilibrium, because they're extremely powerful for what they can do, and comparing their price to other units of the same price, like a Wolfen Crossbowman, they're extremely powerful. But you have guys like the Runic Warrior of the Wolf, who never sees any action. And you see other units like that who suffer the same problem of being tier 3 and supposedly the best, but you never see them. You might see them occasionally, but they don't really do a whole lot better than their counterparts. And that's just a little point I wanted to make. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to say I don't really like the Runic Warrior of the Wolf, and I'd rather spend less AP on a tier 2 or a tier 1 than spending more AP on the tier 3 and not get as much usefulness out of it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Next time we're going to be looking at the War Lightning, Headhunter, and Berserker Hunters of the Wolfen Assault class. Until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.